Good afternoon, everyone. Today's lesson is going to follow on from yesterday's, so I've made your Do Now activity questions from yesterday's lesson. You can use your notes from yesterday if you need help, but I would like you to answer these questions in your class notebook assignment or on a piece of paper. So pause now to answer these questions. Okay, so these are the answers to your Do Now activity. So number 1 was, what is a vertebrate? And the answer is animals with a backbone. Number 2, what is an invertebrate? And the answer is animals without a backbone. Number 3, name one characteristic of a mammal. So I've written a few examples here. So as long as you have one of these, you can give yourself a tick. So have body hair or fur. Offspring are born alive and they are warm-blooded, but you could have had any that were written on the slide from yesterday. Number 4, name one characteristic of a reptile. So again, I've written a few examples. They have dry, scaly skin, their offspring are born from an egg, and they are cold-blooded. So give yourself a mark for each one of these you got right. Okay, so today's lesson is about naming organisms. The date today is Dydd Mawrth 19 Ionawr. Your learning objective for today is to explain how the binomial system is used to name organisms. Your keywords are binomial system, genus, species, organisms, and kingdom. And your link is to understand how organisms are named. So as scientists, we have to classify organisms to be able to name them all over the world, and everyone knows what we're talking about. So we use a system known as the phylogenetic hierarchy, where organisms are placed into groups based on their increasing similarities. So the groups are called kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And you have to remember those names and the order they're in, because as you go down the list of names, they have an increasing similarity between their organisms, and as you go up the list of names, there is an increasing number of species. So in a kingdom, there will be a lot of species in the group, but they won't be very similar. But as you go down through phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species, they get more alike as you go down each group. So it's very important that you remember this order and the names of each one. So there are a few little ways we can remember them. So we can use more memorable words with the same letters. So instead of kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, we use the first letters of each of these words, and we make an acronym that's more fun to remember. So some examples I've come up with are King prawn curry or fat greasy sausages, and another one is King Philip came over for good soup. So they're very silly, but it helps you to remember it as they're more memorable words. So can you think of any other examples that would help you remember this more easily? So the first name on that list was kingdom, and it's important that we know what a kingdom is, that is, as it is the broadest category that we look at. All living things will fit into one of the 5 kingdoms, and we looked at the names of the kingdoms yesterday. They are protists, fungi, plants, animalia, and bacteria or prokaryotes. And it is also important that we know what a species is. So a species is a group of similar organisms that have certain features in common. Organisms of the same species have similar genes, so they have similar characteristics, and only members of the same species are capable of interbreeding to produce fertile offspring. So what is a binomial name? If we use common names to describe animals, it doesn't tell us very much about the species, and people can very easily get confused. So the binomial name tells us the genus and the species of an organism. So those were the last 2 categories in the list. So it allows us to not only see what organism specifically it is, it also allows us to see what it is closely related to. We have to use this system because in different languages, the words they use for different animals can translate into very different things. This can get very confusing, So we have to use a system that everyone understands and everyone can use. So here's an example of different languages translating into different words. So some languages call this animal a river horse, some languages call it a water horse, and some languages call it a water elephant. Can you guess which animal these languages are referring to? The answer is a hippo, and a hippo looks nothing like a horse or an elephant, but in a lot of languages the words translate to call a hippo a water horse or a water elephant. So the binomial system will use the organism's genus and species to create the name, and scientists use the binomial system because it's universal around the world. It avoids the confusion by using those common names. So all of these binomial names are written in Latin and everyone uses it. Okay, so here's an example of how we use the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species to classify an animal. So let's use us humans as an example. So our kingdom would be Animalia, and this is because we are multicellular organisms and our cells have no cell walls, so we are definitely animals. Our phylum is Chordata, which means we are vertebrates, because we are an animal with a backbone, we have a spine. Our class is Mammalia, because our skin has hair on it, and we produce milk to feed our young, and our young are born alive, we live on land, and we are warm-blooded. Our order is primates, because we have flat faces, forward-facing eyes, and opposable digits. Our family would be Hominidae, which means human-like creatures. Our genus is Homo. Humans are the only living member of this genus. And our species is Sapiens. All modern humans belong to this species. So can you work out what the binomial name of humans is? The answer to that, the binomial name of humans is Homo sapiens, because we take the genus and the species. So the genus for humans is Homo, and the species for humans is Sapiens. So we say Homo sapiens as our binomial name. Okay, so let's look at another example. Let's look at classifying a hippo. So the kingdom for a hippo would be Animalia. They are multicellular organisms and their cells don't have cell walls, so they must be animals. Their phylum is Chordata because, again, they have a spine, they have a backbone, which means they are a vertebrate. Their class is Mammalia. Their order is Artiodactyla. Their family is Hippopotamidae. Their genus is Hippopotamus, and their species is Amphibius. So their binomial name is Hippopotamus amphibius. And as you can see here, in orange I've written the genus, and it has to have a capital letter. So we always write the genus in the binomial name with a capital letter, and we always write the species in the binomial name with a lowercase letter. Okay, so now I want you to answer these questions for your first review in your assignment in the class notebook. So question 1 is, what is a species? Question 2, why do scientists use the binomial system to name organisms? And question 3, what classification categories do scientists use in the binomial system? So pause the video now, answer those questions. So this is review 2. I want you to also answer these in your assignment. Number 1, how many kingdoms are there? Number 2, what does K, O, P, G, S and C stand for, and what order should they be in? 3, what does a binomial name tell you? 4, what order and family do humans belong to? 5, which would have the most in common? A, members of the same order or the same family, or 2, members of the same phylum or genus. And finally, review 3, also in your assignment in the class notebook. This is an exam question, so I would like you to answer that, and then when you've finished filling in your assignment, please hand it in. Thank you.